Welcome to Agents Uncovered, where we dive beneath the surface of the agent and learn about their journey, hurdles, and insights. Spoken directly from real estate agents that we can all relate with. We don't focus on the top 1% like every other industry podcast. Instead, we're here to deliver insightful content that we can all relate to and get value from. Whether you're new to the industry, pursuing a passion, or have recently embarked on your journey within real estate, Agents Uncovered will undoubtedly inform, educate, and entertain. Subscribe now and follow Real Estate Training Australia for more content.
Welcome to Agents Uncovered. Today we're joined by Rebecca Leo from Stone Real Estate. Rebecca joined the industry in 2017 and specialises in residential projects and sales on the Southern Gold Coast. There we go.
Yep.
Good morning, Rebecca.
Morning.
Welcome to Agents Uncovered. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Burley's turned the weather on for us.
So good.
So good.
We're so lucky to live here.
Well, I've changed spot with you because I know that you're a bit of a salamander. You'd normally be sitting in the sun.
Yes.
But obviously we've got to adhere to the hair and the fashion.
That's right.
It's very, very important.
It is.
Let's get straight into it.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I'm most curious about with agents is your catalyst moment.
Okay.
So
yep.
that why real estate?
Yep. It's a tricky one. So I work for my brother now, and actually always have. He'd been saying to me for a long time I should consider getting into it. I actually was always like, no, I have no interest, no thank you. And then it just so happened he had a position coming up at a time where I was starting to look at other avenues outside what I was doing, which was events at the time, and I was a bit over that. And I'm one of those people that just goes, well, there's a door opening right at a time where I'm looking for something. That must be a sign. I'll give that a go. And kind of, so that's where it started. That first year to 18 months, as everyone I'm sure says, was really hard. I do remember sitting with the principal of that office at one point saying, I'm earning less now than I did 15 years ago.
Yeah. That's
a really hard thing to wrap my head around. But at the same time, I saw the success people around me were having, my brother was having, if you just kind of dug in and did what you need to do and have the faith. But yeah.
So circle back a bit. You mentioned that you work with your brother and work for your brother, and there's a transition period, and we'll get into that.
Yep.
So I'm assuming then that you had a bit of understanding of what real estate was through
Yes.
conversations and watching. Was the reality of once you transitioned from an outside in the same, or was it, oh my God, I didn't expect that?
No, I think I had the expectation, but then to live it is different. So before I went and officially joined Brendan, I actually, as a mum of young kids at the time and working at that time only part-time, I was coming in and doing some work with him on the side, just prospecting calls.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was quite good at it, to be honest. And I would just come in and smash out 2 hours of calls, go here's some leads and move on. So I knew I had a good idea as well, just from Brendan being my brother, the job and I guess the stresses that come with it as well, which I think is all of the reasons why I was like, initially I have no interest. But it's different to be in the moment then and then just actually living through the roller coaster that it is, particularly in the beginning. Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned that your entry into real estate was working for your brother initially.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's in an assistant role or an associate role.
Yeah, so typical associate role.
Yep.
Doing those, prospecting, letterbox drops, helping at open homes, that kind of thing, buyer follow-up calls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what sort of period of time did that sort of take? Was that 6 months, 12 months? How long were you doing that for?
I did that with him for about, I would say it was 12 to 18 months.
Yep.
And then he departed that particular agency we were with.
Yep.
I stayed for a bit longer. And that gave me, I kind of just went, well, this is it. Now it's time for me to just give it a go as a sole agent.
Yep.
And it was great. It was a great process. It was definitely, I think, the best way to do it, to start as an associate with a good agent. Yep. And someone that does things really well.
Yeah.
And have that grounding starting point to then go out on your own and just know that you've got it.
And in hindsight, were you ready?
Yes,
yeah.
I definitely was ready. Yeah.
And in that lead up period, obviously, you sort of had an inkling what Brendan's was about to do. That transition period, I suppose you had the mental time to go, okay, there's going to come a moment, this is my time, I can jump out.
Yes.
And I suppose as against, hey, I'm going, you're out.
Yes, yeah, no. And I think having that someone to learn from, it's just when the time comes that you do go out on your own, is having that confidence to know that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that first couple obviously are a bit of a kind of, you can do this.
Yeah.
And then once you get that couple underway and it's, building those relationships and having those conversations, particularly with the vendors, is I think the trickier bit. Once you feel confident in that aspect and your ability there, then, it's,
That apprenticeship, that journey, talking with buyers, I'm assuming, was sort of the main contact you had with the industry.
Yeah.
And I suppose the adage is that buyers become sellers, become buyers, become sellers. That would have, I'm assuming, given you a really good leapfrog into a standalone agent. Give you the confidence that, hey, I can do this.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And I think realizing that it doesn't actually have to be that hard in terms of, if you service people really well, do the right things by them.
Yeah.
And then from a vendor's perspective, obviously you are on top of the market and strategies, etc.
Yeah.
It all marries up really well. But at the end of the day, it's having that core, ethical standard of just doing what's best for that person in that moment and in their property journey. Yeah.
And I'm assuming it would have been fairly cathartic stepping out, being your own agent, being your own person. Now that you'd had that sort of 18-month period to work out what style of agent you wanted to be.
Yes.
And obviously given it some thought before you entered the industry, how empowering and wonderful was it to actually step out and be Rebecca Leo, real estate agent?
Yes, I loved it. And I think as well, going back to being a mum, and at the time my husband was working away and only home on weekends, and to be in a job where you can just make it work for you, and be in a job where whatever you put in is what you get out of it. And I've always been a hard worker, so even working in a job where I was only earning a salary, I would do massive hours. So it worked well for me to go into a job where it's sales and you are getting out of it what you put into it.
Yeah.
But to have that flexibility and that autonomy to just know you can do whatever you need to do is great.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
I remember a conversation we had off air, and sort of circling back to that initial, I'm in the industry, wow, this isn't necessarily what I thought it would be. And you mentioned about the hardship and how hard it actually got.
Yeah.
Did it nearly break you?
Yeah. So I'm not one that I would say is an emotional person for me. I'm one of those people that I could see a random stranger crying in the street and I'll cry and I have no idea what they're upset about. But for me personally, I'm not. In that first couple of 18 months of real estate, to be honest, I cried a lot.
Yeah.
I felt very drained. I think financially it was tough. Like, there's no exaggeration when I say we had nights of eating baked beans on toast.
Yeah.
But I had the faith that I knew the work would pay off.
Yep.
And it's just being prepared to ride that roller coaster, which it really is.
Was there anything from your previous career or experiences that you sort of lent on that went, I've been in this situation before, I can get through this? Or was it, sort of seeing your brother's journey, going a combination of both? This is, I've just got to stick it out.
I think a combination of both. And for me, like, there was definitely moments in that first period of time where I did, to be honest, go look at other jobs, what else is on Seek, and then come back and go, no, I've put so much work in so far, I know it's going to be worth it in the end.
Yeah.
I think just that combination of working with Brendan, seeing, that the journey's worth it, but also knowing my own capability and just knowing that it was actually just a matter of time before the tide would turn. Yeah.
So in your standalone journey, it's now 5 years?
5.5 years, it'll be 6. Oh, so in standalone, it'll be about 4.5 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was somewhere around there.
Yes.
So you're out, you're in the industry, you're established. In terms of we've had an interview where an agent mentioned are you interested in real estate or are you all in?
Yes.
And he talks about the moment of transition. And he looked at agency in terms of a standalone agent without resources is sort of interested in real estate because you're doing the role primarily yourself. Whereas when you're all in, you go that next step and you invest.
Yes.
And I know that you have invested in what you're calling an executive assistant.
Yes.
So at what point did that come? Was that year?
I had my first associate probably year 3, I would say. Because it got to a point where I was actually so busy that it went from being stressed from not having money to being stressed because I had too much work for myself and what was I going to do?
Yeah.
And then do you take the leap and hire someone and then obviously start paying money out, but then understand that it'll be worth it, not just for your own time and sanity, and especially being a mum and having that juggle as well. So yeah, I think it was in year 3, and that's where it was that literal moment, like you said, of going, okay, well, this is my career. I've been in 3 years now. I'm kicking off. This is the time to actually start investing in help for not just growth, but my own personal sanity as well and balance.
Outside in, it looked like I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that transition in your business, how things became more fluid.
Yes.
Agents always have the peaks and troughs moments. It seems to me that your pipeline seems to be more consistent.
Yeah.
Your business seems to be more consistent. And I would only assume that that's due to, delegating part of those roles to someone else so that nothing slips through the cracks.
That's right. And as well, just building good relationships. Like I get a good number of referrals, clients that when someone I just sold for the 4th time already, I've sold for them. And considering I've only been a standalone agent for 4.5 years.
Why are they moving so?
Yeah, I know. They've got a good agent. They're like, Beck, we feel like you can get us a good price.
Yeah.
No. So I've got a good referral base as well. And going back to what you were talking about with buyer management, like I have had, a number of buyers come back and ask me to sell their properties purely from their experience from me working with them as a buyer, even though they weren't successful in securing that particular property.
That meeting was memorable. And
they remembered how they felt, how I dealt with them and what I did to achieve the prices that we did. So that's a big part as well. Yeah.
The other part of it I was curious about is that transition into getting someone else. Is that through mentorship? Was that through management? Was that through seeking outside feedback? How did that come about? Who was the catalyst there?
In terms of advice from people?
And going, okay, interested to all in, do I take an EA on? Do I take a buyer's agent on?
Brendan, we've also got a great internal trainer at Stone as well.
Yeah.
So people just sitting down going, look, your business is here.
Yes.
And me as well. I'm clearly like, I'm so stressed, what do I do? Because I had too much to do. And then just literally sitting down and working out exactly that. So with Brendan and the trainer, a business plan to feel confident in that investment as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a business within a business, isn't it?
It's like running your own business, as I say to people. It's actually, and to be honest, there was a lot of things about that surprised me coming into real estate, having come from corporate, where it is just basically your own business within the business in terms of your own expenses, if you get an assistant, if you want to do extra marketing, all those kinds of things. And so it is important to actually have your own plan for. And
I'm knowing your history and knowing that you work within agencies that had, quite a large sales team. And, we try and run our own race and put our blinkers on, but of course you would have been looking left and right. With your background, were you a bit interested that some agents considered themselves employees and didn't have that business within a business mentality?
Yeah, I think you definitely notice that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I am also, I'd like to think pretty good at just doing my thing and not actually looking sideways too much. And I do remember agents getting on and going, oh, this agent got this listing and that agent, and I wouldn't know half the time. I just do what I'm doing, which I think is important because you can easily then get distracted by worrying about what everyone else is doing.
100%.
But yeah, absolutely. I would. You see people and you think, well, you've got this amazing opportunity in this industry, but you're not going to reap any benefit if you don't treat it like your own business.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now at the ripe old age and the vast wealth of experience, 3 pieces of information that you would give to someone potentially entering the industry.
Yeah, I think just do good by people, do what is right for them in that moment. If you can see, we have one business in the past where someone was thinking about selling, but you could see the situation was a bit precarious, and you just kind of chat through the best options for them moving forward to make sure they don't end up in a tricky situation themselves. So just doing the right thing by people, being prepared, even once you start to have success, it's a roller coaster, and it is one of the most emotional jobs I've ever been in. And it's important to value your own time as well, because it's a very all-consuming job. It can be. And yeah, I think it's important just to put time aside for yourself. plan and to be honest, I'm actually say that and I'm so guilty of it still. I'm supposed to have like a day off every, in the midweek, and I never do. But that's because I'm like, no, I want to go to work, and
Yeah.
So it's just making sure that you have balance when you start to get busy, and you do take that opportunity to invest money in people to help you, because you can't look at it as an expense. They'll actually help you grow your business, but also help you have, enjoy life and not just be bogged down in a job that, where people expect a lot from you.
It's that moment. We had another conversation off camera. We're parents, and
Yes.
Our kids come along for the real estate journey with us. If you wouldn't mind sharing that analogy, that story that you told me, it was hilarious about how much we think that our kids don't listen and how much they actually are taking in.
Yes.
You were saying about your son.
Yes. So I had a vendor call me. They'd been on, this was a while ago, they'd been on the market for quite some time.
Yeah.
They just had a very high price in mind.
Yeah.
And
It's not unusual.
no. And I had the kids in the car. The vendor called me, and I said, look, guys, do you mind if I actually just quickly take this call? Had a chat, hung up, and my son piped up and went, is that property still for sale? And I said, yeah. He's like, that is way too long. I'm like, I know.
It is funny though. We try and create that separation between our professional lives and our private lives.
Yes.
And so much of our job blurs that lines.
Yes.
I can imagine school run, shopping, simply getting a coffee.
Yes.
They all become opportunities.
Yes.
And it's how do you tread that fine line between, I'm a professional, but I'm also private.
Yes. And I do try very hard to, even if I'm on the way home and I'm on a phone call, I'll actually pull up down the road to finish the call, so I'm not walking in the house or driving in the driveway still on the phone.
Yeah.
I try to be very mindful to not answer a call when I'm with the kids unless I actually really have to, and I always say, do you guys mind? Because it is a job where you're always on.
Yeah.
More often than not, when we're out, we see someone that I know, and the kids just go, oh, just someone else that you know, Mum. So we kind of make a little joke about it.
Yeah.
But it is a fine line, and it's just making sure, I feel like making sure the kids know that they are the priority, but at the same time you are working hard for them.
I was talking to another agent this week actually, and she was saying that there's places where she'll shop and there's places where she won't, and there's times when she'll shop and there's times where she won't.
Yes.
And it's not so much to be distant, but it's also the fact of, hey, we are humans.
Yeah.
We do need to have that time. We do need to have that space.
Yes.
You mentioned before about the prioritising, and I suppose the decision to bring an EA in comes into that. I was thinking about last night. I got taught early on about compartmentalisation.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking now, if that's probably the wrong word, maybe it's more about prioritisation.
Yes.
A task, B task, C task, D task. It's easy to say compartmentalisation.
Yeah.
And I suppose you would get this, that, you have so many different facets of who Rebecca Leo is.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's not compartmentalisation because it's all sort of happening, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, and it does all blend.
It is that prioritisation, isn't it?
Yes. Of your time and your work. And, most nights I will pop on the computer to answer a few emails after kids are in bed and stuff. But I don't mind that I can go, again, to prioritising and go, I know this handful of emails can just wait till I get home of an evening to quickly get out and not feel overwhelmed with having to try and fit it all into the day when you're out and about on the road a lot. Just having that importance of understanding your own priorities with work and life.
So real estate now, you're in a rich vein. You've gone through the cycle of the century.
Yes.
We're out the other side and we're back into a real market, which you'd be familiar with.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Is it a sigh of relief? Is it a, oh, geez, I wish that had lasted a bit longer?
It's both. So when it was crazy, a specific memory I have, and it was very overwhelming. And, we literally, I remember, for instance, we had a property launch. I was in a meeting. I came out and, no exaggeration, I had 72 missed messages and calls on my phone. And I just was like, oh my gosh. But then also go and be grateful. I'm so lucky to be in this position at the moment.
Yeah.
But then having scenarios like on Mother's Day, processing 11 offers on a property and my daughter coming in and saying, Mum, I just want to spend some time with you, which was like a knife to the heart, which was a turning point of getting an assistant. So when it started to cool off, it was an initial, I can breathe, this is not a bad thing. Everyone can just take their time a little bit, because as you know, properties were listing and selling in the same day with a lot of offers.
Yeah.
And then now obviously it's settled down a bit and you're like, oh, you could always do some more listings.
So I'm assuming that through that period, there would have been a lot of stress on lots of different aspects of your life.
Yes.
Relationships that you built up would have been tested.
Yes.
Obviously, the almighty dollar would have tested that.
Yes.
How did you navigate that? We know each other, we trust each other, and yet they've selected another agent.
Oh, I've had that, as agents do, like multiple times.
Yeah.
And I genuinely go, no problem. You've got to choose someone. Wish you all the best.
Yeah.
Keep me posted on how it goes. I'm still here to help you if and when you need. And I've even recently had listings where I've lost them, but then ended up coming back around 90 days later and selling the property for them.
Yep.
Everyone has to make a decision on who they're going with. It's a really tough decision, and as long as they've, considered all options, and if they decide that's the best option for them, wish them all the best.
And so for you, it's very much, you mentioned blinkers. I'll take the higher road, and it's their decision, and I can see that it's probably not the best decision for them, but higher road, I've just got to keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
I suppose coming back into this marketplace now, where relationships more than anything are very high on priority.
Yes.
I suppose taking the higher ground is sort of coming back into, I'm glad I did that now.
Absolutely. I think it all just comes around, always. I had a perfect example recently where I lost a listing, and he just actually knew quite a few agents. He's a really friendly guy, and he went with someone else. I said, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
As I said, long story short, I ended up being able to come back around and still take that over, because it's not, I genuinely could say I'm not one of those agents that if I lose a listing that I'm like, throwing my phone and getting incredibly upset. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And I just think it's just, it'll come back around, whether it's with that particular property or another one.
And it's that moral compass, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's being true to who you are. I'm sorry, I put you on the wrong side of the bridge, didn't I? It's maintaining that moral compass, I guess, in a competitive environment.
Yes.
And real estate, as much as we do put our blinkers on, there are forces that are trying to distract us all the time.
Always. And don't get me wrong, I definitely have moments where I'm like, what the? But for a minute or two. Like, I definitely am not one to dwell on stuff and let it consume me. You've got too many other things to do.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I know mentorship and empowerment is big for you.
Yeah.
So what is a way that perhaps someone's not aware of that you're doing that for real estate?
I think from my perspective, I've had some women approach me about the job and whether they feel like they could manage it. And I think it's just, I love showing that women or men, anything you can do, whatever you want to do, as long as it's something that you actually are invested in.
Yep.
And whether you're juggling kids or relationships or whatever it might be, or starting, like some people go, I think I'm too old to start a new career. I was 37, and I think that's kind of old to start a new career. I hear people in their early 30s or late 20s saying, I don't know. I'm like, there's no boundaries.
I've had 4 career changes in the last 7 months and I'm 50, so no, it doesn't stop.
I think it's just important to show people there's no boundaries. You want to do something, you can make it work. Real estate's amazing for the flexibility.
Yeah.
It can be a hindrance for some people if they're not someone that has the right drive to manage that, because you can easily just go surfing every day or go, whatever is of interest to you and not work. So you definitely need to have that inner drive and motivation to make it work.
Is that a field that you explore? Is that sort of something that is challenging your intellectual side outside of your real estate career? Is it a field that you're sort of finding yourself pushing towards?
The mentorship stuff?
Yeah.
So, but pre-real estate, actually, I used to run workshops for women on building kind of self-confidence and being true to yourself, and just knowing that people are either going to love you or they're not, and that's okay, and all that kind of thing. So I used to do that and do a bit of keynote speaking and stuff, and it kind of just fell to the wayside when real estate started, because it's such a consuming job.
Yeah.
And actually, it's funny you ask that, because just very recently I was saying to Brendan and at the owner of Stone as well, like I would really like to make time to start doing that stuff again, because I actually found it very fulfilling.
There seems to be some parallels. I find through this interview process that I understand my own career better through having these conversations. And I'm wondering if that transitional period of, you know, you were the interviewee or the host, and now that you're on the other side of the fence, you're having those moments or deja vu moments. Oh, I remember back then, and that's where this is starting to now come into and play.
Definitely. Yeah. And I'm definitely having those moments like, oh, I really used to love doing that, and I need to get back into that and making time for that. And, And then obviously the flow and effect to your real estate career, and understanding and having better empathy for people, having a better forming a better understanding of what their needs are. Helping them transition. Yeah, we had a girl from one of our other offices ask me to have a coffee and just, you know, pick my brain, and I said to her, the best advice, there's so many, you know what to do when it comes to trying to get business with prospecting and the calls and the letters and all that kind of stuff. What you need to then do on top of that is just going back to do the right thing, but have faith. Like, have faith that if you go home each day and you know, I actually did everything I could today, I didn't go and have a 2-hour lunch, or, you know, that's all you need to do, and it'll be worth it in the end, but it's just timing.
I'm conscious of taking a lot of your time this morning, and I know you've got to go. There's a piece there that I'd like to explore a bit further, so perhaps with your permission we'll come back and do that another day. But it's just very quickly, there's a piece there with regards to dynamic week. It seems to me that you have a dynamic week rather than, say, a structured week.
Yeah, and everyone's very different.
100%.
You know, Brendan, my brother, so he's quite different. He does like very structured. I am a bit more like go with the flow. But everything works for different people, 100%. So it's important to find what works for you to get the best out of the job. But that's actually probably one of the biggest things in coming into real estate is some people like to do an ideal day or an ideal week, or obviously it's important to have some kind of structure, don't get me wrong. But I think it's really important to know everyone's minds work so differently. So it's important to know what works best for you, and even your energy levels. Like if you know that you've got better energy in the morning, and then you'll save certain tasks for the afternoon. Like for me, I'll prefer to do any emails that can wait out of an evening, because I know I've just got that focus to sit there and be able to do that thoughtfully. So it's getting understanding who you are and how you work to then apply that to the job.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's about what to stop. Beth, really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much. That was all right.
Awesome.